All right, Anthony on Air podcast back for another episode. On this show, we are recapping day 11 of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. The defense's case begins. We're covering every single thing that happened in the courtroom today, including the request denied by Judge Alison Nathan, made by the Ghislaine Maxwell defense team. We're also going to be talking about the shocking testimony from Kimberly Espinoza. We'll explain who she is. And the memory expert also testified in court today. Elizabeth Loftus was on the stand, so we'll cover all of her testimony. Of course, our podcast is entirely made possible by our good pals over at Jumpstart Coffee Company. Link in the description below. Order your Jumpstart Coffee Company right now. Save 15% with the promo code AOA15. More on our Jumpstart Coffee Company pals in a second. Let's start with the denial of the request by Ghislaine Maxwell's defense team. If you remember, this is one of the topics that we covered while we had a few days off from trial earlier in the week. Again, you can see all of our episodes on YouTube, Facebook, and now you could even watch on Spotify if you like to watch the podcast. And if you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcast or TuneIn or Stitcher or wherever you listen to, go back a couple of episodes. We covered this request from the Ghislaine Maxwell defense team where they wanted the witnesses for the defense to be able to testify anonymously. I said I had never seen anything like this. I checked with some legal experts. The only thing that they could come up with is if there was a terrorist trial and like a CIA agent was asked to testify, they would allow that person to testify anonymously, of course, to protect their identity. But outside of that, people that want to, testify and be a witness on behalf of an alleged sex trafficker, nobody's ever asked them to testify anonymously before. So Judge Alison Nathan denied this. Of course, that's what we fully expected. Although it is 2021, and sometimes, logic doesn't always play out. But in this particular case, logic won out. Which was nice. Judge Nathan wrote an opinion and filed it Thursday morning. She said there's a distinction between a government's witness and a defense witness. There's something different in protecting alleged victims of abuse. You want to protect their identity. She said those sort of protections just do not apply for defense witnesses. None of the defense witnesses, she said, and I quote, intend to testify to sensitive personal topics or sexual conduct. I mean, they've got some gall to make this request, we have some people that want to testify because, they're going to testify to the fact that, Ghislaine's a great person. It was always great to them, but they're too embarrassed to have their name publicly associated with her. Judge Alison Nathan had every right to deny this. This was a ludicrous request. But I will say it's another interesting play from the defense team, Bobby Sternheim. Most specifically, she was the one that came out of her office where she said, if you don't do it, they may not testify. And that, of course, is going to impact Ghislaine's ability to defend herself. So they're always kind of working this angle of it's so unfair for my client, right? Pre-trial, this is all we heard. The conditions are unfair. She's crawling into the van to get to the courtroom because she's shackled. Flashlights in her eyes. The food's terrible. She had gray hair. She looked awful. That's all we heard pre-trial. Then the first day the jury was in court, she had her hair dyed. She was dressed really nice. It's just like obvious tricks, tricks of the trade for a defense team. But they're doing their best. That's their job, I guess. You hate to see it on a human level, but it's their job, I guess. And Judge Alison Nathan didn't go for it this morning. We don't know who these people are. I think it was supposedly 3 people who wanted to testify anonymously. We don't know if they will still testify. I guess, we'll find out in due time. Who knows if there even are these people? You know what I mean? Like, who knows if these people even really exist? How do we know? What if this was just a ploy by the defense to be like, let's throw this out there and see what they say? And if they grant it, which is a long shot, they could just pick 3 witnesses they had planned anyway. And if they don't, at least they get to say, it's not fair. Ghislaine can't really defend herself adequately if she's not allowed to call all her defense witnesses. So who knows what the truth is really. But it was denied, and rightfully so, by Judge Alison Nathan. Kimberly Espinoza. I'm shocked by this testimony. Shocked. I'm going to share it all with you here. Let me take a moment to tell you about Jumpstart Coffee Company, proud sponsors of this podcast. 50% of their profits go to the Navy SEAL Foundation. That's why we say great coffee, great cause, coffee that supports the Navy SEAL Foundation, our veterans and their families. So when you purchase this coffee, you're supporting our podcast, you're supporting the Navy SEALs, our veterans, their families, and you're supporting a great company that really makes a great, great product. We've been sharing the reviews coming in from you all on the last few episodes. We haven't even had a mediocre review, let alone a bad one. Every one of them has been great. Every one of them has been through the roof. If this was kind of okay coffee, you would still feel good about buying it because of all the Navy SEAL stuff, But the fact that it's amazing coffee makes it all the better. Makes great gifts, wonderful for Secret Santas. With the promo code AOA15, you save 15% on your order. So you can get a bag or 2, give it to somebody for Secret Santa, tell them about the Navy SEAL thing. It's going to be a little bit of icing on top of that Christmas cake right there. Still a little bit of time to get it for the holidays, so order quickly. And of course, if you spend over $50, Chris and the whole crew at Jumpstart Coffee Company, they're going to pick up the tab on shipping. So keep that in mind. Use the promo code AOA15, AOA15, AOA15. Link in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, and now Spotify, which you could watch on, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, whatever. Link is in this description. Click that link, put the promo code in, and order yourself some great coffee. I love all their blends, espresso blend, dark roast blend. Traditionally, I'm a really dark, bitter kind of a coffee guy, but their medium roast is unbelievably good. It was against my ego. I didn't want to go down to medium roast. I'm a hard nose, dark roast kind of a dude, but I got to give it up for that medium roast. It is truly unbelievable. Order today. Once again, link in the description below. I knew the defense was going to call people that were going to be on Ghislaine Maxwell's side, obviously. But after reading some of Kimberly's testimony, and after all of the things that we've read, seen, heard from victims, heard from, other members of Epstein's workforce like Juan Alessi, I'm shocked at Kimberly Espinoza's testimony. Now, Kimberly was the executive assistant to Ghislaine Maxwell. She worked for Ghislaine Maxwell from 1996 until 2002. First witness called by the defense. She described Ms. Maxwell as Mr. Epstein's estate manager. She could not say how important Maxwell was to Epstein. She did say about Miss Maxwell, although she was demanding, she was fair. She said, and I quote, "I highly respected Ghislaine. I looked up to her very much." Now, we've just begun. There's more here. But I am shocked that somebody could say, I looked up to her very much. Even if you did at the time. Let's play a good old game called, let's keep our head in the sand and pretend like for a second none of these things really happened that are alleged in this case. Even if you did look up to this woman at one point in time, which is understandable because when you get hired for a new job, everything is glorious. These people just chose you. They're paying you money. Hopefully it's good money. You're excited for a new venture. Even in that honeymoon period, if you did look up to your boss and your boss was Ghislaine Maxwell, would you admit it today? You're not supposed to lie on the stand. You're really not. I'm not advocating that. But you don't have to be like, oh, I looked up to her. It just seems crazy to me. I don't know if I could take the stand with my name being mentioned and being public and go, yeah, you know that one that like 200 people alleged, the most horrific things possible happened to them? I looked up to her. Well, I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's crazy. Crazy. Um, Among the witnesses prosecutors presented were four women. We know this. One expert witness test. Excuse me. I'm sorry. During her time, Miss Espinoza offered her thoughts on Mr. Epstein. Also, on one of the aforementioned witnesses, Jane. She was the first witness for the prosecution. Miss Espinoza said that Mr. Epstein was known to pay for the education of employees' children, saying, quote, he was a giver, he was generous. She said that she remembered that Mr. Epstein had distributed tickets to The Lion King on Broadway to almost all of the employees who wanted to go. Jane and her family members stayed in one of several apartments owned by Mr. Epstein, which were commonly used by his friends, Miss Espinoza explained today on the stand. She added that Mr. Epstein employees thought of Jane as his goddaughter. Her exact quote, I thought it was a loving relationship. Miss Espinoza testified that she had never seen Miss Maxwell or Mr. Epstein engage in inappropriate activity with underage girls. A few minutes later, a prosecutor, Laura Pomerantz, briefly cross-examined Miss Espinoza, which is maybe the saving grace of this, whole ordeal. Laura Pomerantz got her up on the stands and said, had you ever visited the West Palm Beach home of Mr. Epstein, where most of the abuse is being cited took place? And she said no. So, the fact that somebody far off could have missed all of this, okay, kind of possible. But as I'm like reading the transcript of the testimony and I'm going through everything and I'm like, how on earth could you possibly miss all this? And the answer to that is she wasn't ever in the Palm Beach residence. So we'll see. It's also worth noting the defense still hasn't let everybody know how many witnesses they're exactly calling and in what order they are calling them in. They're revealing very little. On what they plan to do here, but they did say that their case would likely last no longer than 4 days. Again, shocking, because we had a thing where we thought we were in for 6 weeks, 4 of which was the prosecution's case, and they ended theirs in 2. And then we were assuming 2 weeks for the defense, and then when they came out and announced, oh, we're going to have 11 more witnesses than the prosecution, we thought, well, okay, maybe we are going to be on for a 6-week till here. But in the other way, 2 weeks for the prosecution, 4 weeks for the defense, they don't see their case going another 4 days or longer than 4 more days. Odds are it's probably going to go a little bit longer than that. And of course, then we're going to get into jury deliberations and see how long that all takes. But they said it wouldn't last longer than 4 days. During the back and forth between defense lawyers and prosecutors in front of the judge this morning, before the jurors entered the courtroom, Ms. Maxwell's lawyers previewed part of their case. They said they would call Elizabeth Loftus, who we'll get to. She's the memory person there. During that trial, she had testified also during Harvey Weinstein's trial. During that trial, she utilized factors of stress and alcohol and drugs and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. During an opening statement, defense lawyer also told jurors that they would learn that not only have memories faded, they have been contaminated by outside information, constant media reports, and other influences. So we'll get right into Elizabeth Loftus's testimony. But I'm surprised by the length of time, and I'm really, really surprised by Kimberly's testimony. Wait, one more thing. By the way, I'm not misspelling Kimberly on the screen there. She does spell her name with a C. and not a K. Um, it is true that Espinoza didn't see anything. And again, this doesn't guarantee anything, but you form your own opinion here. She never saw them do anything inappropriate. Um, she never went down to West Palm Beach. They asked her if she ever booked massages for Miss Maxwell. She said yes. She said they were professional massages. They asked her if she booked the same for Jeffrey Epstein. She again answered yes. So she did book massages for them, but she says nothing. She never witnessed anything inappropriate. I'm not calling Kimberly a liar. I'm even if we're gonna give Kimberly the benefit of the doubt and assume that she's telling the truth on the stand. I mean, the odds that there was a person that could work with these people for 6 years, be booking massages for them, and not kind of get a bad feeling on anything, I kind of find hard to believe. I just find it a little hard to believe. Again, maybe they were sticking their head in the sand. Maybe they just chose to ignore certain things. Maybe the money was so good. Maybe they didn't have to do much, and she was up in New York and wherever. And I don't know. I don't know. Is it possible that nothing could have happened that this woman had seen? I guess. I guess. I just find it highly unlikely. Especially the fact that she saw them with Jane, and then her describing that relationship as a loving relationship also really weirds me out. I mean, really, really weirds me out. Look, I'm not saying there's not wonderful people in this world, and I'm sure there's wealthy people in this world that take young, unfortunate people, you know, people who don't have the means and give them money and scholarships, and I know that happens, and there's wonderful things that take place. I just don't. I don't know. I have a really hard time picturing a 35, 40, 45-year-old person being friendly with a 16-year-old girl. You know what I mean? Like I just have a hard time with it. I mean, I'm not 40 just yet, but I am. I literally know no 15-year-old girl. I mean, none. I mean, absolutely none. I mean, if I had to press for it, okay, Frank's niece, his brother's daughter, I know her. We're not hanging out. That's inappropriate. I mean, now, it just doesn't, my niece is, I don't even know how old, 12 or whatever. And, outside of to be with, for a person my age to be with a total stranger and have a relationship there is just bizarre. And if I was in a position where I could help somebody like that, I would never think about hanging around with them without having their parent there or a guardian. You know what I mean? I mean, what the hell would you even talk about? I mean, in my line of work, I have the pleasure of working with, 20-year-olds. And I can't stand being around those people. I mean, it's really annoying. The kind of shit that they talk about. Oh my God. And then you say things like, oh yeah, you ever hear the Dave Matthews Band? And they go, no. And you're like, what? Who are you? Where have you come from? Why don't you know anything? You know what I mean? It's odd. It's odd to have a relationship like that. And I think it's odd, and this is my point if I could bring it all home, odd to look at a relationship like that and go, well, that's a loving relationship. Again, I'm sure there's wealthy people, middle-aged, that help, 17, 18-year-old girls. I just wouldn't think that they would be in a position where they were like, oh, come to the play with me or come to the movies with me. But then again, that's kind of what Ghislaine's role was, right? It was always kind of like, well, Ghislaine's there. right? I mean, so, again, it's all very strange. I, and if you're asking me, Anne, are you saying that you would look poorly on anybody who is middle aged, who is palling around with a 17-year-old? And my answer would be yes. I would, and no matter who it was, no matter who it was, even if it was Dave Matthews himself, okay, who I worship, I would still look at that as odd. I mean, it's my whole issue with Michael Jackson, and people criticize me for being critical of Michael Jackson. I'm sorry. I know he was a wealthy and talented human being, and I know he was, wanted to share the love and, give kids an opportunity and go on the rides at Neverland Ranch. I think it's inappropriate behavior. I think it's weird. And I'm not surprised that people have accused him of things. And I've seen the documentaries of people talk about their experiences, and I believe them. Because I don't think a grown man, no matter who the hell you are, should be carrying on those relationships. I just don't. I just don't. I don't think it's appropriate, all around. Hey, that's just me. So again, kind of shocking some angles of Kimberly's testimony here today, especially now that we know that she, booked him massages as well. There was a couple other things. I don't know how much we really need to get into it. Espinoza said that she saw Jane on a soap opera. She said that Jane sent her signed headshots. Maxwell's lawyers gave her the headshots and to identify them, and she said, "Yeah, these are real. These are the ones. They're authentic." And she said, "How do you recognize them?" And she goes, "Because they're mine." So that was another kind of exchange that they had. The headshots were signed, "Dearest Kimberly, thank you for always being so sweet and such a great help. Take care, Jane." I don't know how that makes you feel about that. They also asked her about her thoughts on the relationship and interactions between Maxwell and Epstein, and she said that she thought they were a couple. Just based off their interaction together, they were a little flirty, she said. Asked if their relationship changed, Espinoza said Maxwell started dating other men at one point. She said, "quote They would not show up at the office around the same time, leave together, things like that." They asked about Maxwell's relationship with Ted Wyatt, the billionaire co-founder of Gateway. Then they took a break. That was morning recess. Let me see here. Let's go into. There's a couple other things, but I'm gonna probably save that, and there's kind of some bigger backgroundy things going on with some of the other co-conspirators, if you will. We'll save that for another day, for a bigger recappy day, when we have a bit more time. Let's get into Elizabeth Loftus and her testimony again. This is the, quote unquote memory expert. She's the one who's testified in a ton of trials. Elizabeth Loftus, we knew about her ahead of time. Excuse me. And we knew that she would be testifying, and that's kind of when we started to realize, like, oh, okay, this is going to be the case of Ghislaine Maxwell's defense. Like, this is the approach that they're going to take. So their first expert witness, again, Kimberly was the first witness. This is the first expert witness called Thursday. Elizabeth described memories as being fragile and malleable, testified that they can be distorted by language, emotion, and misinformation. Questioning the reliability of the memories of the four women who have accused Ms. Maxwell of grooming them is basically what the whole defense is, basing their case off of. Elizabeth Loftus is a professor at the University of California, Irvine. She spent decades studying what she described as the nature of memory, the workings of memory, and false memories. I just want to say this too. I thought the prosecution had a really good day today. I thought that them putting Kimberly not in the West Palm Beach house was super important. And I think that what they did to Elizabeth in their cross examination also very good. So anyway, let's start at the top though. She said Elizabeth testified that she'd conducted hundreds of experiments on memory and determined that exposure to falsehoods can cause people to form false memories that they regard as real. She testified, quote, they fall sway to the misinformation. It becomes their memory. Ms. Loftus has testified in multiple trials as a defense witness, taking the stand during Harvey Weinstein's 2020 trial to question the testimony by actress Annabella Sciorra, who was in The Sopranos, amongst other great films, to tell jurors that in that case, the memories not only fade over time, but can often be skewed. Prosecutors in Ms. Maxwell's trial had asked Judge Alison Nathan to exclude the evidence from Ms. Loftus' opinions on topics like how memories are created and how false memories can be described with confidence, detail, and emotion. But Judge Alison Nathan accepted Ms. Loftus as an expert witness, and she testified today on some of the topics that the government had wanted to avoid. I can't fault Judge Alison Nathan on this. She's got to be fair, and she has testified a ton before. So if you keep her out of this case, it would look really, really bad. That's why she had to kind of let her go. Defense lawyers had worked hard throughout the trial to trip up prosecution witnesses on their recollections, highlights, uncertainties about whether events, when certain events happened, pointing out discrepancies between testimony in court and early statements to investigators. Again, this is important, and we talked about this last week. Again, if you want to catch up, if this is the first time you're hearing or watching us, super important. I would say YouTube is the best place to go because we have all the daily recaps in a playlist so you can watch one right after the other. We talked about this a bunch. It wasn't previous testimony, but it was previous discussions that the witnesses were having with investigators. And if they found a difference there, they brought it up. Even in one case, I forget which one exactly, but there was one case where it was like the witness was basically saying, it's what I'm saying is right. What was written down by the investigator is wrong. But it didn't even matter to the defense. They just needed to show there was a difference. This is set up for today. Ms. Loftus said that memory doesn't work as a recording device. And she described 3 stages that cover how memories are formed. The acquisition stage, when the events occur. The retention stage, when memories of those events are essentially stored. And the retrieval stage, when someone may be asked to recount an experience. Post-event suggestions include disinformation, questioning by someone with an agenda or hypotheses, or even a conversation between 2 people about the past can cause memory contamination, or what she describes as quote-unquote contamination. Ms. Loftus testified today. She added that news reports or questions from law enforcement can also affect memory. And she said people can start out with ambiguous memory of certain events, but then if those events are labeled in a certain way, they can start to remember their experiences closer to the label. She's kind of describing, again, you ever hear how witnesses will confess to something even though they didn't do it because they're the way that the questions are asked by, investigators initially and the hot lights, and they're nervous and they're concerned, and then they start saying this or that, and then they wind up confessing to something that they never did. It's kind of what she's alluding to here. She said people can start out with ambiguous memories of certain events. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that part of my notes. Ms. Sternheim asked whether or not the inclusion of very vivid details means that the memory is accurate. Ms. Loftus replied that false memories can be just as vivid or detailed as real ones. She said people can be confident about them. People can be emotional about them. That was her testimony. When the prosecution came up to cross-examine her, again, give them credit. They did a really good job today. Laura Pomerantz was doing cross. She asked Ms. Loftus to acknowledge that she had testified in about 150 criminal trials. Ms. Loftus said yes. She asked her, have they all been, has she always been a witness for the defense? She had not. 150 trials. Only one time did she testify not as a defense witness. So 149 out of 150 times, She was up there for the defense. Criminal, not criminal, accused criminal, alleged criminal, testifying in their favor. Beautifully done by the prosecution. Beautifully done. You've been a part of 150 trials. 149 of them, you were on the defense's side. What does that say about you? Well, Aunt, that proves nothing. Okay. They asked her if she had written a book. She said she had. What was the name of the book? Quote, Witness for the Defense. Okay? She wrote a book about the fact that she had been a defense witness so many times. So I feel like, if she did make a good point today, if Kimberly did point Miss Maxwell in a certain light, the prosecution kind of came in and did their job, kind of laid it out. Well, you're kind of a professional defense witness at this point. You've been in 150 cases, all but one for the defense, and you wrote a book. I mean, how can we take you seriously? They didn't say that, but that's kind of the tone. Hopefully the jury saw it that way as well. That is it for day 11. You guys are all caught up. Friday, day 12, we'll recap. Plus, we'll do a full episode of the regular podcast. Frankie C. J. Sabs will be along. We have plenty of stuff to talk about. Chris Noth from Sex and the City. 2 allegations against him announced today. This is after we're coming off of the whole Sex and the City reboot that's on HBO Max, the whole Peloton controversy, and then he comes and rescues Peloton after their stock goes down 11%. Now this story breaks. We'll dive into that on the next episode with Jay Sabs, who will hopefully be along with us. She's our Sex and the City expert, of course, and a plethora of other interesting topics that are going on that happened today, and of course things that will happen tomorrow. We'll have a full recap for you of the last few days here when we do our full episode. So Ghislaine recap up to start the podcast tomorrow, and then we'll do our other topics as well. Don't forget, you can grab some awesome merch also to support the podcast here at shopanthonyonair.com. That's shopanthonyonair.com. And of course, got to support the sponsors of the show. They make it all happen. Jumpstart Coffee Company. Save 15% when you order with the link in the description of this episode, or you could click the banner on the homepage of anthonyonair.com. It both works, and use that promo code AOA15 to save 15%. That's AOA15. That does not affect the 50% of the profits from Jumpstart Coffee Company that goes to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And don't forget, if you want to order a slew of coffee, people have been ordering, 5-10 bags, handing it out to all their employees for Christmas. Awesome thing to do. Awesome thing to do. If you spend more than $50 after the promo code, after the 15% savings, Chris and the whole crew at Jumpstart Coffee Company, they'll pick up the shipping for you. So free shipping on all those orders over $50. So good deal all around. It's a win-win for everybody, including yourself, who's going to have lovely, delicious coffee. You're never going to want to have another cup of coffee after this one. I promise you that. It is that good. Again, medium roast right now, still my personal favorite. Might change, but I'm a medium roast kind of a guy. Hope you're enjoying the Ghislaine Maxwell trial recaps. Make sure you share this on social media. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications. Same deal on Facebook. Make sure you're following us on our Facebook page. If you prefer to watch that way, that's A-OK with me. And, of course, the new thing now is we are on Spotify on video. Not every podcast is available on video. Joe Rogan was the first. They've let a small group of podcasts go on there because they're sort of still experimenting right now, Spotify on video podcasts. We were lucky enough to be invited to be one of those podcasts to show our video stream on there, and we are doing that. So if you'd like to watch on Spotify, you're more than welcome to. Although I'll be honest with you, I kind of like YouTube first and Facebook second. But we'll see what Spotify does. Appreciate you guys watching and or listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Take care.